Greetings all, D&Disability here. I'm far from the first to talk about this topic. So, what can a blind 30-year-old scholar add? Hopefully, I can combine some of the common ideas, talk about solutions, and draw connections to those of us with disability. If you like this, please like, subscribe, and tune in next week for part 2, role players and attention hogs. Power gamers creep up in any game system. The need to win often drives these players, but not always. Some players like to see the numbers go up. Those are the kind of players that want the highest armor class, most damage, best combos, highest hit points, or crazy high skill advantages. They watch those "this combo is broken" videos and bring them into your game. Now, there are two main perspectives on this group. One, they are killing the fun, and two, they could be necessary. Let's cover both. Honestly, this group isn't all bad. They spend hours poring through books and weighing all available options. They will know how their class works, what every ability does, or at the very least what they think it does, because sometimes OP combos come from ignoring rules or from simply using an ability the wrong way. But they can even help others understand their class abilities. They often are the first to help the DM find a rule or a spell. They almost always can assure the party will survive even an unbalanced or unprepared for encounter, such as random encounters for those of you DMs that use those. What might be obvious to some is that players with autism can fall into this category. They might hyperfixate on a single aspect of the game. But players with depression often fall into this category as well. They would want a strong character that always succeeds to help compensate for their shitty week. Some players with physical disabilities can be power gamers as well for similar reasons. What one's IRL body can't do, a souped up, min-maxed, Bane serum-fueled monstrosity of a character can do. And while there's room for exploring what players with disabilities and characters with disabilities can gain from having disabilities and exploring those routes, power gamers don't usually take that attitude. So let's also not forget that these players might never see their character failing. They might not have a concept of character failure in mind. They just, for them, they're here to succeed, they're here to win. So, as a side note, I would put power gamers in the category of character that is most likely to cheat on rolls as well. You often see them not failing rolls or simply gathering enough bonuses that are so high they can't, quote unquote, fail. In a sense, they are to blame, but the DM is also. This is a challenging subgroup to combat. They usually are forced out of other groups that they play in after time. DMs get frustrated, players get frustrated. And it's kind of ironic that we love to see people succeed, but when they succeed all the time, it really pisses us off. I saw a player roll 5 natural 20s once, and my table was too busy accusing them of cheating to appreciate the minor miracle they just witnessed. Now, to be fair, this game was online, and the online format may have contributed to player outrage, but nonetheless, the point still stands. Too much success at the table is, in fact, a bad thing. So, as you might have guessed, power gaming isn't always a positive force. But what's the problem with it if they can do good things? Well, a power gamer, min-maxer, or whatever you want to call them, they often specialize in a single field, whether skills, spells, combat, adventuring, whatever. And fundamentally, they rob the tension and the fun from that specific element, because they are almost always guaranteed to succeed. As many have said, if you try to challenge a power gamer in their specific niche, then the rest of the party is almost always doomed to fail. These players may also become bored or not engage with other elements than the ones they have chosen to specialize in. These players, kind of like assistants, who we'll talk about later, often dictate what the best action for a scenario is and can sometimes try and control other players to get optimal results. So, with all of that in mind, how do we deal with them? Well, regardless of disability or impairment, engaging them in their specified area, whether it's combat, disabling traps, stealth, avoiding encounters, magic, whatever, is a surefire way to make them happy. You might have to simply accept that specific category of play cannot be a vector where you challenge the party. Every once in a while, you should challenge the min-maxer. Just don't worry about doing it all the time. And if they get bored of the non-combat, non-specialized encounters, then remind them why you aren't doing those encounters to begin with. Be honest about it. Say something like, your character isn't conducive to letting other players have fun in X situation. So those situations will not come up as frequently as if you had played a more balanced character. And if they don't like it, quite simply, there's the door. A common side effect of this is the subclass you saw paired with the title here, the Murder Hobo. These are the characters that are probably the most infamous in D&D. They're the ones that just want the treasure. They're the ones that don't want to talk. They see combat as a solution. They're memes. Murder hobos can be min-maxing power gamers, but not always. And in my experience, murder hobos are a symptom of that player or players not getting what they want from the game and having misconceptions about the game. They begin to treat D&D like it's some kind of MMO or some kind of RPG video game where they're like, oh, it's just a game, we can stab the farmer and take all his stuff. Oh, it's just a game, we can, play a goblin and throw poop at our friends' heads. Yes, I had a player actually do that once, and he wondered why the whole party hated them. With almost any form of neurodivergence, though, murder hobos can happen simply because they don't understand the situation, or they get frustrated, or they only want one specific thing out of the game, much the same way power gamers do, which is why I lump them together. However, let's try and view this group from a different perspective. Some players may struggle breaking out of their niche or hyperfixation. They might accidentally power game because they think they're just being prepared. They feel this desire, this burning need to be ready because they don't want their precious character to die, or they don't want to be overwhelmed by whatever the DM is planning. This can be the case with wargamers, as you'll see, but it's mostly a symptom of a lack of reassurance. The DM has hyped up their game to the point of, oh, I'm such a killer dungeon master, that they fail to be honest with their players and tell them that they are going to at least attempt to give them a fair, balanced encounter with fair challenges. Games like 5e have challenge rating systems for a reason. Now, some games, of course, like Basic Fantasy, Morkborg, and earlier versions of D&D don't have a challenge rating system. And often those are just rough guides anyway. So sometimes unbalanced encounters happen. But as a DM, it's our responsibility to explain that failure, and of course the chance of failure, is part of the game. Try to get across to the power gamer and, of course, the murder hobo that they are making balanced play impossible. And if you've talked to them, and the group's talked to them, and they still don't change, well, just drop a building on their favorite min-maxed character and move on. If you have a whole party of power gamers, though, this is where this kind of gets fun, because I was just talking about them in isolation. Well, sometimes they travel in groups. So, what do? Well, we sit down, strap in, and craft sessions that are perpetually deadlier or seemingly more impossible encounters to just heave against them. Make rulings neutrally, don't necessarily rule in favor of the party, they don't need the extra help. I often find myself as a DM ruling in favor of my players when in doubt. But that said, don't make this a DM versus player kind of attitude. It's not worth it, and at the end of the day, the DM will lose. 4 players are always smarter than 1. What a party of power gamers wants is a challenge. And if they set up their party right, they might even have a character that is min-maxed for exactly almost any challenge that would come their way. And that could actually be a really fun encounter system where everybody has their own specialized thing and everybody gets to show off their super talent pretty much every session or every couple of sessions. So, as I'm sure you've noticed, there's no single or simple answer, despite what the internet wants to tell you. Talk to your players and be honest about how power gaming affects your enjoyment of the game. Some DMs don't mind it. I, for one, as an example, don't mind it, right? But others, it really spoils their fun, and we'll get into why in future videos. But you might be surprised that it's not only DMs who don't like it. There are plenty of players whose fun is ruined because their character is constantly outshined by someone else's, outmatched by someone else's, and I really think that's why we have a problem with characters always succeeding. It's because they're succeeding and we aren't. It's like Dota or League. When players start losing, they start whinging. So, with that said, what are some of your solutions for power gaming? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know how you tackle these problems and what you think. Alright, see you next week with my next video on role players and attention hogs.